Jai Baba, everybody. Welcome to the Lord Meher book reading. And we are on page number 2330. Uh, Eva, you'll start reading today. Thanks.
Start now, Mona?
Yeah, yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
Page 2330. Wartime travel for musts. The following morning, Baba gave darshan in Mahabaleshwar to townspeople from the area at 9 o'clock. George returned to Pune after the darshan. Erich returned to Pune after the darshan. A horse-drawn carriage and another mare were sent by Sarosh that day in a large open truck. Sidhu drove Baba in it from Union House to Valley View. Since Baba and the women were about to move to Bihilar, the horse and carriage were returned to Sarosh. Rao Sahib saw Baba on the 29th and then left with Shanji. Baba and all shifted to Bihilar on Wednesday, 31 March 1943, and Adi Sr. met him there the next day. Baba was to be away for most of April and May, arranging another meeting at Meherabad and contacting musts. As a pastime for the women who would be staying in Bihilar, 3 other horses were purchased, one for MEHER, one for Irene Billow, and one for Mani, Meru, and Katie. Baba continued to meet only MEHER and Mani, but he removed the restrictions of not speaking between the groups of women. MEHER was not permitted to read or write. Since she had been fond of riding horses since childhood, Baba arranged this recreation for her in Bihilar, and it was the chief reason he had shifted everyone to Bihilar, because where they were staying in Mahabaleshwar was not suitable for riding. Rano would stand at one end of a field and Pillamai at the other. Once when Katie was riding, the animal suddenly got frightened and began galloping away. Katie was terrified and called out Baba's name. Rano ran after her and was able to stop the horse. Mani was once thrown from her horse, but was not injured. Previously, on 21 March 1943, Baba had informed his closest lovers that he wished them to come to Meherabad for a month, from 15 May to 15 June. But on 1 April, he shortened the period to 5 days, deciding instead to call them a second time in August 1943 for a month. Most of those invited had already arranged everything regarding their jobs and families. Now that the plan was changed, they had to make the same arrangements again for the month of August. This was to prove a great test for them. In his circular of 1 April 1943, Baba wrote to them, "In view of the difficulties possible regarding the time, occasion, and circumstances for the Mandali, who are in any case ready to obey at any cost, and also taking into consideration my work with you all and for the world to coincide with my manifestation, I have finally decided that you should be present in Meherabad on 15th May for 5 days only. During this time, I will instruct you how to be ready for the realization and manifestation of ideals in the month of August. Then you are to go back to your places and join me for 1 full month, from the 1st of August to the 30th of August. Naturally, you will be inconvenienced by having to rearrange your affairs and to readjust what you now must have already adjusted. But every kind of inconvenience, small or big, now or in the future, has to be faced earnestly, according to your having agreed to obey at any sacrifice. In short, you should be in Meherabad on 15 May for 6 days and on August 1st for 1 month. During your 6-day stay at Meherabad, you will ask me no questions, but listen to my instructions, which will be clear and precise. Acknowledge this letter immediately at Meherabad address. Age explains, the master's change of plans was a necessary, beneficial step for his lovers. It was a lesson in being ready to obey the master and being indifferent to worldly attachments. Out of the instability surrounding Meher Baba's activities came inner stability, as due to his constant change of plans. The mind was focused more and more on him and less on the binding entanglements of the material world. Gadekar and P.N. Limkar brought Krishnaro and his group to perform again for Baba on Saturday, 3 April 1943, from 4 to 8 p.m. The next day, Adi Sr. drove Baba to Meherabad to begin planning for the meeting. Don met them briefly in Pune on their way. A feast on the evening of the 5th in honor of Baba's mother, Memo, was arranged at Meherabad by Pendu, according to Baba's instructions. A large meeting of the Mandali was held on the 6th. Baba spoke to Manek Mehta, who had attended the December meeting, about doing his work and avoiding the greatest pitfall of self-conscious superiority while carrying it out. Deshmukh saw Baba on the 7th and discussed plans for visits to Delhi, Agra, and Jabalpur. Ghani and Sailor Mama's family saw Baba at Meherabad the following day. On 9 April, Baba left in Sarosha's car with Kaka, Adi Sr., Kustaji, Baidu, and Shanji on a tour of Pune, Bombay, Surat, Jalgaon to contact musts and footnote. Pendu and Chagan joined them for part of the tour and were then sent to Gujarat and Benares. As Baba, for his own reasons, did not wish to step in Bombay proper, he was driven from Bandra to Kurla railway station. Since there were many passengers waiting at the station, he went on to Borivali, where there was less chance of him being recognized, and he boarded a train from there. A week later, at the conclusion of his must work, Baba returned to Meherabad on 17 April. Baba remained there for 2 days, discussing the upcoming meeting, and then left on the 20th to visit Mehera and Mani in Bihilar. The women's bungalow in Bihilar was surrounded by tall grass on all sides. Walu would cut it and burn it to prevent snakes from coming near. One day, when she was doing this, a violent whirlwind began blowing and the grass caught fire. Walu was trapped and shouted Baba's name. The women came running and extinguished the fire. Despite being in the midst of the blaze, Walu was unharmed due to Baba's nazar. Another day, in the dry summer weather, while Baba was away, the forest in Bihilar caught fire, and the force of the wind brought it near their bungalow. Krishna and Venkoba Rao were trying to put out the fire, but it was of little use against the strength with which the fire was raging nearby. Rano, Margaret, and Kitty tied scarves around their mouths and joined the effort, beating back the flames with green tree branches. It was no use. The fire was reaching such proportions that the whole bungalow was about to be razed to the ground. All began calling to Baba for help, and miraculously, the wind suddenly subsided, and the women and Krishna and Venkoba managed to contain the flames. After Baba arrived and was informed about the incident, he asked Krishna, "Did you get burned?" "Not much," he said, "a little here and there." Baba remarked to him, "Had you gotten burned, I would have felt happy." Kitty was supervising the kitchen and had Baba's order not to let any food go to waste. She was daily ordering fresh bread from the market, but each day some would be left over. One day, Kitty collected the stale bread and made bread pudding. No one liked the dish, so there was a lot left over. She wondered what she should do with it. Baba's order was not to waste anything, so she could not throw it away. Failing to find a solution, Kitty sat down and consumed the dish herself in 4 hours, thus carrying out her master's wish. During this period, as mentioned, Baba was not meeting any of the women except Mehera and Mani. But for the upcoming meeting at Meherabad, he wished 2 charts prepared. And so he called Rana one day, explained all the points to her, and she started drawing the charts. Margaret was sharing Rano's room, and her job was to correspond with the West. Baba's birds in America and Europe were eager for word from India, and so Margaret was sending them news regularly of Baba's activities. But when Rano began making the charts, Baba would come to her room to see them or to explain some point. And at that time, Margaret was told to leave. One day, Baba came to inspect Rano's work, and heeding prior instructions, Margaret left before his arrival. Baba examined the charts and then sent Rano to bring Margaret back, motioning to her not to tell Margaret he was still there. Margaret walked in and seeing Baba was startled. "Rano, why didn't you tell me Baba was here?" she demanded. Baba laughed. "Don't worry, I myself called you." Rana was, of course, delighted that, due to the charts, she had occasion to see Baba. Some days later, however, Baba stopped coming to inspect the work, and Rano had no further chance of seeing him. Once, when she could not follow an intricate point, she wrote her difficulty to Baba and sent the note through Nailu. But Baba did not call her or go to her room. He simply dictated a note in return through Nilu. Baba Das and Vishnu arrived in Bihilar on 22 April 1943 with Deshmukh. Don had been drafted into the Indian Army's medical service, and whenever he had leave, he would visit Baba. Baba would also write to him. At one point during the war, Baba sent Don this poem. The war news is bad. The world seems to go mad. But don't at all be sad. You know who turns the key. Be glad. On the 24th, Don came to Bihilar in the afternoon for a one-day visit. The next morning, conversing with Don about the war, Baba dictated from his alphabet board. There is all this noise about the war, and here it is about my work. My work will assume double the momentum from August onwards, when it truly begins. I hold the key to everything, and as I turn it, things will happen. It is the master key. There will be a great slaughter in India between the Hindus and Muslims. Stabbings, shootings, and killings will be the order of the day, and even women and children won't escape them. Rail traffic and transportation will be disrupted.
Thanks, Evam.
Oh,
Yeah. Rosalie, can you read from the top of the page, please? Thank you.
That very funny where you stopped her reading. Trains will be looted and derailed. It's sabotage on a gigantic scale. There will be great carnage. Japan will try and attack Bengal and other parts of the country with their naval armaments. Half of Bengal would rather join Japan. All this chaos in India will dwarf the developments in Europe and America. Germany is not going to be easily defeated, even if Tunisia fails. The worst aspect of the war will manifest in August. Russia is not on friendly terms with America and England, who want to crush her, as they fear Russia like Frankenstein. Stalin knows this, and because he is now busy fighting Germany, he keeps quiet and pretends friendship with America and England. But when the time comes, he will assert himself. Although Russia will not join with Germany, it will neither be in union with the Allies. It is a pity Stalin hates all three, Germany, England, and America. Russia's friendship with Japan is significant. The Japanese are cunning from the very beginning. All this will take more years to subside and finally come to a settlement. Curiously, it was reported in the newspaper that Churchill, while speaking to a group of coal miners, had remarked in hindsight about Hitler's mistake in not invading Britain in 1940. Quotes, I have a feeling sometimes that some guiding hand had interfered. I have a feeling that we had a guardian because we serve a great cause, and that we shall have that guardian so long as we serve that cause faithfully. Chanji noted, however unconsciously spoken by the speaker, they literally describe an aspect of the divine plan as explained Baba. While the meeting was going on with Don Deshmukh, Baba Das, and D.K. Shahastrabuddhe arrived and joined the meeting. Footnote, Shahastrabuddhe owned a guest house in Mahabaleshwar and supplied food to the Mandali when Baba was there. He believed deeply in Baba. Baba spent most of the day with the Mandali until 4 in the afternoon. He was in an exceptionally good mood and commended them. I am extremely happy when I see men like Don. What a spirit of self-sacrifice and selflessness in giving up everything, everyone so near and dear, and while serving the government, dedicating all to me. What sacrifice and service could be greater? That is what makes me happy with my men, Mandali. They are heroes. They are men in the real sense of the word. The time is very near when these special selected ones, 24 of them, will have the highest experience, as also others of the circle. Baba also met Rupamai and Dina Talati, who had come for the day and were permitted to spend the night before returning to Bombay. Other visitors included Mani H. Mehta, the son of a prominent Baha'i leader, and a few other Baha'is. Mehta had met Vishnu in the bazaar and expressed a keen desire to meet Meher Baba. Vishnu explained that Baba was not meeting outsiders, but suggested they take a chance, as Baba was at the Mandali's bungalow that day. They went, and Baba granted them darshan for a moment. Mehta asked Baba in a challenging tone why he had come to Panchgani, and Baba replied, there is no need to explain now. You will understand and come to know in the future. I will explain things then. Sidhu came to Bilar with Muhammad Mast so that Baba could work with him. Sidhu's main duty in Mehrabad consisted in looking after Muhammad, and he continued this important work until he died. On the night of 28 April, Sidhu went out into the jungle to move his bowels. Bilar was situated in the midst of thick jungles and was infested with tigers. As Sidhu was squatting with his pants down, a tiger came right up to him out of the dark. Its eyes burned and it began growling at him. Sidhu wanted to shout Baba's name, but his tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth. He was so scared. he began perspiring and then he fainted. At that moment, Baba sent Krishna to give Sidhu a message. Sidhu was not in his room, and Krishna informed Baba. Baba instructed him to tell the Mandali to go out into the jungle with lanterns to find him. Chagan, Nilu, Vishnu, and Masaji, armed with clubs and carrying kerosene lanterns, left to look for Sidhu. When they found him, the tiger ran away. Sidhu was so frightened he could not utter a word. With difficulty, they lifted him up, but his legs were shaking so much he couldn't even stand. They helped him walk back to the Mandali's quarters, and after an hour, he managed one halting sentence. Baba saved me. On Saturday, 1st May 1943, Adi Sr. drove Baba from Bilar to Meherabad. Chanji accompanied them to Pune and left from there for Bombay. Adi Jr. came with them from Pune. 2 miles from Meherabad, Adi's car had a flat, and Baba had to wait under a tree for an hour until help came from Sarosh Motorworks.
Thank you, Rosalie. Joshua, would you read next? Thank you.
Baba returned to Behalar on the 5th of May in Sarosh's car, but was back in Meherabad 2 days later to supervise final preparations for the meeting. Baba again drove back to Behalar on 8th of May, but returned to Meherabad 3 days later on the 11th, after seeing Eruk in Pune en route. Kaka arrived in Meherabad the next day from Bombay. Also on the 12th, the German army surrendered at Tunisia, and almost 300,000 prisoners were taken. Baba rested during the afternoon on 13th of May 1943 on Padri's cot in the hall at Lower Meherabad. Remarking that it was too hot in his tin cabin on the hill, he called to the Mandali, and there was some singing. Anna 104 read out portions of the Gita, and some Urdu poetry was also read from Gani's book. As it was being read, Gani arrived, as did Dr. Deshmukh and Babadas. Baba was in the fine mood and dictated on the board. There are 3 ways in which the Avatar teaches. In ordinary language for the masses who follow the Shariat and ritual of their religion so that they can understand. In language both ordinary and mystical for the few advanced souls, and language of holy mystical for the circle. Zoroaster gave the masses Shariat, as in those days they could well understand good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. He did not say in clear words, act and don't care about the result, since they would not have been able to accept it. So Zoroaster said the same thing, but in a different way. Muhammad said, keep engrossed in action alone. If you act well, you will go to heaven. If you act evilly, you will go to hell. Krishna said, act, but do not care for the results. Dedicate them to me. Why? Because the atmosphere then was full of warring spirits. Jesus also said, act, but in the spirit of sacrifice. All these teachings given by the avatars were according to the exigencies of the times then prevailing. Sailor Mama's son-in-law, Homi Manikji, Pogriewala was a photographer whom Baba had helped, giving him 500 rupees to purchase a camera and 100 rupees per month for some time. He and his wife Jeannie had stayed at Meherbad and were now living in a house in Abnagar with their son. Baba visited the family on 13th of May after he visited a car press and cruise recorders. Records were played and Baba was photographed. For the gathering, Pindu, being the manager of Meherabad, was expert in arranging for the pandal and looking after the necessities of such a program. Padre was experienced in engineering and was in charge of the water supply and lighting arrangements. Masaji and Chagan were the cooks. Adi Sr. was to look after the guests' arrival and departure transportation and to read Baba's dictation on the alphabet board during the program. From all over India, 125 men gathered in Meherabad on Friday, 14th of May, 1943, including 28 from Pafali, Pleaders Saoner group, and 15 from Jap Mandal of Bombay, led by their president, Manek Mehta. Don was also able to get leave and come, but he arrived on the evening of the 15th and missed the first day's proceedings. Only those who had sworn complete obedience and who were ready to work in the master's cause attended the meeting. As the men arrived on the 14th, Baba began seeing them individually. As age recorded, Baba was in his happiest mood, his features blooming like a rose. His eyes emitted sparks of light, gladdening the hearts of all who had come. Before this happiness, the joy of heaven is nothing. Heaven's delight is circumscribed by chains of gold, and the suffering of hell with chains of iron. From the spiritual standpoint, heaven and hell's bondage are both imaginary and can never open the doors to emancipation. But at Meherabad, this happiness was leading men on the path to the beyond, detaching them from all types of happiness and pain from their beloved. The lovers were housed in Lower Meherabad, and Baba spent the nights on Meherabad Hill, sleeping in the crypt or the tin cabin. The heat at Meherabad was intense during May, and the lovers were to observe a partial fast of one meal a day with tea during their 5-day stay. On Saturday, 15th of May, 1943, Baba addressed all collectively. They gathered on the platform outside the tomb at 7:30 p.m. At times, Baba would crack jokes, give discourses, or listen to ghazals and funny stories from those assembled. In the Sawner group was a man named Raghu Patel. Baba asked him, "Would you offer your neck to me? Would you sacrifice your life for me?" Raghu was dumbfounded by the question and gazed at his leader. "Bafali," he said to him, "Bafali Saheb, you have brought me here for darshan, and Baba wants my throat. What will happen to my wife and children?" There was a burst of laughter, and Baba smilingly asked again, "Are you afraid of death?" "What if I am?" he replied, "when I have a wife and children to look after?" "To die is not easy," Baba spelled out to him. "Thousands and thousands die daily, but it is not dying. Dying should be such that it is complete death. Then it becomes life eternal. If I offer my neck in your cause, would you keep me alive eternally? When you are worried about your wife and children, how can you offer your neck? I am ready now, Baba, quite ready. I offer you my neck. Slash it. I don't care now if you keep me alive or not." "Now you have become very brave," Baba chuckled. Baba then asked Anna 104 to recite some shlokas from the Gita, which he did. Baba explained their meaning in English, and his remarks were translated into Hindi by Ghani. When Deshmukh was asked to render them into Marathi, he looked confused and kept staring at Baba. He was befuddled and seemed unaware of what was happening around him. When told again to give out the Marathi version, Deshmukh looked as if he had just been awakened from sleep. He could not do the translation, since he had not listened properly, nor could he remember what was said. Baba remarked about Deshmukh, "Here is a man who has both head and heart, which is a very rare combination in any disciple. He writes my articles, discourses in the Mahir Baba journal from the points I dictate, and writes them well, as you all know. But now in my presence he is so lost in love that he looks like a mouse." Focusing on the main subject, Baba observed, "Dr. Ghani and Dr. Deshmukh have both grasped and assimilated the points in the divine theme chart so well that there is nothing left for me to explain. However, I will make it so clear and easy that you will feel that you have got God in your grip. You will feel as if He is in your hands by intellectual conviction. So all must come fully prepared to listen to the 3-hour explanation tomorrow. Every one of you must be here on August 1st for 1 month. Don't miss the August opportunity, or you will miss an August opportunity."
Thank you. I want 25 men who can, under proper circumstances, fast on water for 7 days from the 25th to the 31st of July. By proper circumstances, I mean the person should be free of any responsibility. Otherwise, Dr. Ghani would say it would make his wife weep and that would hinder my work. In short, I want those who can fast freely and undisturbed, either fast or keep silence. Even if you were to fast for 40 years, you would never be able to realize God. Otherwise, every dumbbell in the world would be God realized. Adi Senior has remained on water for 28 days. Pila Mai of Karachi has lived on water for 31 days and throughout the time was active in performing her household duties. Only when I sent an order from here did she begin taking food. Kitty and Ernest, her brother, lived on water in London for 40 days, and similarly others. But all this fasting or silence has nothing to do with God or even the path. The reason for this is, as you will know tomorrow, that good and bad both are binding. Not eating binds just as well as eating. In short, fasting and not fasting are both binding. God is beyond both. He is even beyond hope. Why do you fast? With some hope, of course, whether it is material or spiritual. The fact is that the very thought of fasting or beginning a fast is very binding. One fasts either because one is ill or has no appetite. None could be prepared to fast without a motive. Even if you think of fasting to death, that thought of fasting itself is a binding. I will fast to death to see God. That thought is always there, but only a very few rare souls can see God by such a threat. It is heroic, but very rare. I want 25 men to fast for 7 days, primarily for my work in August. Selecting 25 individuals was difficult, with 50 raising their hands, but Baba managed in a good humored way. It was a surprise to all that Ghani, who always grumbled at the mention of fast, was the last man to raise his hand. Baba praised him and smilingly remarked, "You're worthy of being my childhood friend." Baba then embraced him and directed him to sit with those not fasting. Ghani was accepted, but was not to be among the fasters. Thus, embracing 15 or 20 more men, Baba ordered them not to fast. Although he expressed his pleasure at their offer and preparedness to do so, amidst jokes and laughter, he selected the 25 persons and instructed them as follows. You may begin the fast at your respective places from July 25th. Come to Mehrabad on the 31st, and by taking milk on 1st August, break the fast. In my presence, I will hand you the milk myself. Now, we shall talk of the program tomorrow. You will find me full of humor because I know that if I were in your place, I would have loved a God who laughed and joked and not one who was dry and dull. I would love that God who would even kill smilingly. Even if he were to take your life, he would do so laughingly. Tomorrow will be a very busy day for you because of a tight schedule, and the 17th and 18th will also be difficult. The circulars have been kept ready, which I will explain in detail tomorrow. Tomorrow, the 16th, will be Meher Ki Raat, the night of significance. The 17th will be Katla Ki Raat, the night of suffering. The 18th will be Karbala, the night of slaughter. The 19th will be the night of God, of celebration and feasting. Ordinarily, it sounds easy, but when I tell you in detail tomorrow, you will find it difficult. I will explain tomorrow about the silence, seclusion, and meditation. Before everyone disappeared, the circular of typed instructions that Baba had mentioned was handed to all. They were the following instructions, if carried out wholeheartedly by you, will allow you to help my work of spiritualizing the world. They are not to be treated like long established sermons, read, heard, and forgotten. They are not to be understood in the light of philosophical slogans preached merely for the sake of preaching. They are simple, eternal truths which I want all of you to try your utmost to live. The instructions are: amidst all your duties and attachments, let the background of all of your thoughts be only on one thought, that God alone is real and all else is illusion. Second, infuse into others the idea that the ultimate goal of all life is to know God in his true infinite aspect. Third, think less of yourself and more of others by trying to make others happy, even if you have to suffer for it. Fourth, learn for yourself and teach others that recognition of God's will means not to complain of your lot, that control of the mind means not to be upset by misfortunes, that loving all of all as children of the same one God means not to be jealous of anyone and not hurt the feelings of anyone. Now, listen very carefully. The period of 1 month, beginning from May 15th, 1943, and ending on June 14th, 1943, is the most important period of my spiritual life mission. During this whole month, I want every one of you to follow literally the following. First, observe strict celibacy, even if you are married. Second, do not attend cinemas. Third, do not go to theaters and concerts. Fourth, do not attend parties. Fifth, avoid entertainments. Sixth, the first thing every morning is to say a sincere prayer from you to God to make you understand Him and His will. Yep. Is there more words, Eva? Thanks. Could you scroll? Yeah. All were up at 6:30 on Sunday, 16th May 1943, and had tea at 7:30 a.m. Baba held more interviews for 2 hours from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. The gathering assembled before him at 10 a.m. and Baba inquired, "Did you sleep well last night?" I ask this because you all have to be awake and attentive tonight for 3 hours, from 7:30 to 10:30 p.m. All replied that they had slept well. Baba continued at length. "Now listen. I want all to observe silence on the 18th for 12 hours in such a way that it equals silence for 1,200 days. This silence must be both within and without, internal as well as external. External silence is easy, but the internal is difficult. Now, what do I mean by internal silence? It means you must silence your mind for 12 hours. When you speak with the tongue, it is speech. When the lips are sealed, it is external silence. Now, the mind too has a tongue of its own with which it talks. The continual working of the mind is like the mind continually talking. The very creation of a thought is like speaking internally. Hence, the lips of the mind must be sealed. Keeping the mind silent for 12 hours is equal to not thinking at all with the mind for 12 hours. But the mind does not stop thinking for even 12 seconds. If anyone can consciously keep the mind's thoughts silent for even 12 seconds, he would achieve a very advanced spiritual state. Yep. Hmm. Eva, would you like to read?
Sure. You feel blank at times for a moment or more, but that does not mean the mind's working has stopped. To stop the mind from thinking or to make it think and concentrate on one thought are both equal. If the mind cannot be stopped from thinking, the best remedy is to try to engage it by concentrating on one particular object. If you really, from the bottom of your heart, wish, as I want you to gain in August, not only the experience, but also the knowledge to work for me in the future, then do tomorrow and on the 18th, as I tell you. From 7 in the morning to 7 in the evening, observe silence externally. Each of you should sit at a distance of 6 to 7 feet from one another and try not to think of anything except what I will explain to you tonight on the chart. To drive away thoughts means not to entertain or encourage other irrelevant thoughts. Just imagine that you are on a special watch duty to guard yourself against grave danger to your very life. This guard means watching over unexpected and sudden attacks from deadly enemies who are determined to kill you. During that time, you have to keep on reproducing in your mind all that I will tell and explain to you tonight. If during this process other thoughts, like enemies, intervene, you have to be on guard and, because of these, try to stop and eject them. It is no ordinary meditation during these 12 hours. Just imagine how alert you would have to be under these conditions. Keep yourself like this. On the 18th, excuse me, on the 18th, the external silence will begin from 7 a.m., lasting till 8:30 a.m. Then the internal silence commences from 8:30 to 11:30 a.m., which is more difficult. And again, from 3 to 6 p.m., you can go up the hill to a quiet spot to sit in solitude during the silence if you want. This silence is not like the internal silence of the yogis, nor is it for you. It is for my work. You can move about for nature's call, etc., but with the continuity of the same central thought maintained. It is not necessary for you to sit apart during the ordinary external silence, but it is especially necessary for the internal silence. It is for this reason that I said that the day after tomorrow, the 18th, is the day of Karbala, when the suffering will be at its greatest and the test the severest. The existence of this whole phenomenal world is all due to your mind. It all exists because your mind works. Once the mind stops, the world of phenomena ceases to be. So you will have to win the battle on the 18th. Such an occasion will not come again. We shall see which of you are prepared to observe this. This program of work has a great spiritual importance and significance. This one day's work, if done from the depth of your heart sincerely, will be equal to 50 years of tapas, penances, austerities, and fasts done by a saint, because the avatar of the age himself wants you to participate in his work for the world. And this is now the culmination of the work he has been doing for you. So what I want to impress upon you all is to do it with love and without fear of failing. If you do it conscientiously, there will be no failing, because it is I who makes you do it. And it is I who takes upon myself the responsibility. You are not to concern yourself with the result. Otherwise, if you were to do it yourself of your own accord, it would be a very laborious process. You have to keep this thought predominant in your mind. I have to do it for Baba and not for my individual advancement. Spiritual singing was then held until noon, and lunch was served at 2 p.m. It was the only meal of the day because of the partial fast. That night, Baba gave his company to the men from 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. on the platform outside his tomb. Those at the darshan sat on the ground on a carpet, and Baba sat on his gadi on the platform. Thereupon he stated, now, while you're thinking of the divine theme chart, its explanation, figure, color, etc., if, in spite of your efforts, other thoughts do intervene, what will you do? You have to try not to let them, not with fear, but with love for Baba. If you have these thoughts, don't despair that you have failed and are unable to observe internal silence. You can't keep your mind free of thoughts, even for 12 seconds. That I know. And next reader.
Rosalie, can you read? Thanks.
Just continue putting up a fight with all these thoughts. Whether you win or the thoughts win, this is not the point at issue. It is no concern of yours. You just have to put up a fight sincerely and continuously. And my key will turn in such a way that you will really get various thoughts. It is because I want you to fight the battle and win. You have simply to concentrate on the chart, the explanation, figure and colors, which will automatically enable you to keep your mind away from other thoughts. Where is the question of a fight if you don't get other thoughts? And for my own reasons, I want you to keep on fighting mentally during these hours. Don't lose without a fight. Don't take defeat lying down without fighting against the strongest of thoughts. Here, Baba called up two men from the gathering, a strong, stout person, and the other, Faram working Boxwala, quite the opposite, lean and weak. Pointing to them, he explained, "Look at these two men. One is quite strong and big, and the other quite weak. If the weak one is afraid of his opponent's appearance and gives up the game, the other wins without a fight. And in this, there is no credit. But if the weakling, in spite of his lean figure, is spirited enough to face his opponent, however strong, he will at least give a good fight. So you have not to despair, but to give a strong fight. Picture Faram, the weakling, fighting an enemy who does not exist. That would be like waving his fist in the air. It is foolishness, madness. So for a fight, there must be an opponent. The more formidable a foe, the more spirited the fight, and the more creditable the victory and result. So continue with the fight of mental reaction without fear." Footnote. In the war, the British Royal Air Force had heavily bombed dams in the German Ruhr Valley on 16th May 1943, causing great flooding and devastation. All gathered at 7:30 a.m. on Monday, 17th May 1943, to hear Baba's explanation of the divine chart. You have to follow this very carefully, since it is most important. You have to ponder over it tomorrow during the internal silence. The explanations in Urdu, Gujarati, and Marathi will be given again later by the concerned persons with the aid of the chart. Much of this has already been told to you by me in bits and pieces, but now it has all been collected, and I will tell you the whole story. Deshmukh then read out the Marathi translation, which Baba had already dictated. Deshmukh would read aloud, and intermittently, Baba would clarify certain points. At one point, Baba stopped him and spelled out, quotes, "When we say ages, it is wrong. In infinity, there is no age. There is absolutely nothing like ages. But in duality, we have to say that time exists." When Deshmukh had finished, Baba began his explanation by stating, "Today, let us begin by saying that only God exists. If there is something beyond God, that too is God. And so every one of you is within God." Deshmukh read out the foreword to the chart, and Baba said, "I have already explained all this before, but today I will throw more light on it and make it clear." He drew this diagram on the blackboard. When I was a teacher for 25 years in Nargai or Nargal, I can't tell, I think Nargai, during 1915, I had drawn this diagram. I remember it well. Before listening to the explanation of the chart, fix your attention to this one point for a moment. Because of these covers of the mind and body, the drop does not see the ocean. Now,
Just a second, Rosalie. Eva, can you just enlarge the diagram, please? Scroll down a bit so we can see it. Scroll up. Scroll up. Scroll up. Yeah. So there's a dot in the center. It's like a circle that depicts the Atma. And around that, there's another circle, which is the mind. And then there's another circle, which is the body. And then this Paramatma. So there's in the middle we have Atma, and around the Atma is the mind, and around the mind is the body, and around that is the Paramatma. Yeah. Now, Rosalie, you can read. Thanks. Eva, just yeah.
When I was a teacher for 25 days in Nargol during 1915, I had drawn this diagram. I remember it well. Before listening to the explanation of the chart, fix your attention on this one point for a moment. Because of these covers of the mind and body, the drop does not see the ocean. Now, what happens? The body drops, but the mind remains. And when the body drops, its impressions immediately manifest, trying to spread themselves and assume a new body. They want expression through the body. And so another body comes into existence, which is made up of these impressions. Thus, with the dropping of every form, the sanskaras want to take another body. If these sanskaras are crooked, meaning evil, the body is also crooked, diseased, for example. If the sanskaras are bad, the body suffers pain. If they are good, the mind is happy. So long as the mind is there, the impressions will be there. And with these, the body also. The soul won't see God until the sanskaras are finished. Dropping of the body is therefore of no avail. But if the mind goes, then there are no sanskaras left. They disappear. But the paradox is that the body's falling, or is it failing? Failing and no. But the paradox is that the body's falling and sanskaras asking for another body to spend themselves help the soul gradually to gain self-consciousness for the drop to see the ocean, the oversoul. Then what is required? The mind must go. Then alone can these impressions gathered automatically disappear. Then the body, the dropped soul, sees the ocean. This was the original state of God. But at that time, the Atma, soul, was sleeping with his eyes closed.
I think we'll end it there for today on page 2345. And